Groceries are still expensive, cars are still expensive, and the supply chain issues still aren't fixed. Ships are still sitting off the coast just waiting to unload despite efforts from state lawmakers and the president. But today, the White House announced yet another round of possible remedies they call an action plan. Last month, the president addressed this supply chain issue. I told you about those steps he was taking at that time in this video. So what's in this new White House action plan? The White House first points to the $17 billion specifically earmarked in the recently passed bipartisan infrastructure bill to improve infrastructure at coastal ports, inland ports, waterways, and land ports of entry along the borders. But the truth is that money is going to take a while to start flowing. So in the meantime, the White House has announced the following: $243 million in grant funding within the next 45 days for port infrastructure improvements. Within 60 days, identify $4 billion in construction projects at coastal ports and inland waterways for the Army Corps of Engineers to tackle. Identify $3.4 billion in investment to upgrade obsolete inspection facilities at key ports of entry within 90 days. And finally, begin the Department of Transportation competition for the first round of port and waterway infrastructure projects within 90 days. Now, here's the other issue. The ports, trucks, terminals, and trains as a whole that make up the nation's goods pipeline are operated mostly by private companies. It's important to understand the supply chain issues have been building for years, and COVID-19 didn't help. Couple that with the fact that the nation's ports, trucks, and trains are handling a record volume of goods because of consumer demand. But this chronic congestion and soaring freight costs are driving prices higher for goods and services throughout the country for all of us. And it doesn't seem to be getting any better. In fact, the Bureau of Labor Statistics says in October, wholesale prices were almost 9% higher than they were a year ago. So whether any of this action plan will help fix the supply chain problem, like in the near future, we'll have to wait and see. A ton of you were asking me about how the OSHA rule for vaccines being paused by the appeals court impacts other employment vaccine mandates that you may be dealing with. So let me clear it up. There are 3 separate federal COVID-19 vaccine orders that impact 3 separate groups of workers in this country and may impact your employment. There's the OSHA emergency temporary standard that we've all been talking about. There's the executive order for federal employees and contractors. And then there's the so-called CMS mandate for healthcare workers who work in facilities that get money from Medicare and Medicaid. Now, all 3 of these are completely separate and independent of each other. And all 3 also may include an exemption for a religious or medical reason. However, those may not be granted. The only one that's on pause is the OSHA emergency temporary standard that says workers at all U.S. companies with more than 100 employees must either be fully vaccinated or submit to regular testing by January 4th. This is the only one that is making its way through the appellate court system, as I explained in detail in this video. And the status of this OSHA rule in the courts has nothing to do with the other 2 federal vaccine orders. The second vaccine order is the president's executive order dated September 9th for all federal workers and contractors to be vaccinated with no testing option. Federal workers currently have until November 22nd to be fully vaccinated, and contractors have until January 4th. For the record, the federal government workers union is right now asking the president to push back the deadline for federal employees to January 4th so it matches the contractor deadline. No word yet if the White House will agree. I'm watching that closely. The last is the so-called Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services vaccine mandate. You probably know it as the CMS mandate. This mandate impacts about 17 million workers and says all eligible staff at healthcare facilities that participate in Medicare and Medicaid programs must be fully vaccinated by January 4th with no testing option. Now, if the OSHA rule gets permanently put on hold, that has no impact on the other 2 federal rules. At this point, they both stand. Also, your employer, completely separate from all 3 of these things, may still issue a vaccine or testing mandate as a term of your employment, and that still can happen.